Bob Iger has a town hall with Disney employees on the studio lot, and there is a lot to discuss in regards to this town hall. We're going to break it down for you, discuss it, analyze it, give our opinions up next on OG 55.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
to all who come to this happy place,
welcome to Orange Grove 55.
Welcome, everybody. Today, we are talking about that Bob Iger town hall that took place at 9 a.m. California time. We're going to break it down, give you our thoughts. We want you guys and gals at home to comment and opine on it as well in the comments section. We would love to hear from you. But before we do that, I want to introduce my esteemed colleague, my producer.
And now, the man with many titles, bringing you juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove, Mr. Vash Sky.
All right. Okay. All right. I get it. Thank you so much, OG, for that delightful intro. This is going to be a fascinating one. But before we get into it, let's dispense with the pleasantries real fast. Hey, if you want to go ahead and follow me, you can go ahead and do so at Vash Sky, where I pretty much retweeted everybody recently. Everybody who had some insight on this town hall. So make sure you check that out. And if you, actually, you know what, OG, you got Walt for me, because I got to hear Walt.
You know what, Walt, take it away, my friend.
And there's the biggest bargain of all.
The biggest bargain of all is correct, it is 2022, so I guess it's most appropriate to call this The Bundle. And if you want to get your hands on The Bundle, well, you got to subscribe here to Orange Grove 55, where you'll find shows like Citrus Corner, Orange Nerd, Orange Grove 55, what you're watching right now, and my show on there as well, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. And because we're getting into this, well,
Hold on to your butts.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so this is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So Bob Iger had a town hall with Disney company employees, cast members this morning at 9 a.m. And really, there wasn't any major kind of bombshells dropped at this town hall,
right?
But there was a lot of interesting things kind of weaved into the conversation that definitely we're talking about. Very, very interesting. So Mr. Vashka, if you want to set the table, we'll go from there.
Yes, please. I sure will. Yes. So as OG delightfully put before, 9 a.m. What is it? PST, if I'm not mistaken. This lauded town hall that Iger was going to put on to discourse with cast members and so forth and employees of the Walt Disney Company. Well, that actually took place. And what we glean from that is very, very interesting. Hollywood Reporter has a pretty decent summation here. Bob Iger dismisses mega deal talk, says Apple sale is, quote, pure speculation, and will keep Disney's hiring freeze. Quote, do I like the company being embroiled in controversy? Of course not. The returning CEO also told the staff at a town hall in response to a question about Disney's relationship with politics. So it basically starts out here. Iger said that while the ask about, was a surprise. Had some inkling that the call would come someday. The call would come that day. Sorry. Okay, so what he's referring to right here. This is very, very fascinating. So
yeah,
we start off right from jump. I believe the moderator kind of asked her own question from Leslie Sykes here about the call that Iger received Friday from Susan Arnold. Would he want to come back from to helm the Walt Disney Company as its CEO. And what he says here is, I had some inkling it would come, not just soon, not just at some time. No, that day. That is really what's most intriguing here.
Unbelievable.
Oh, gee, what do you think about all this?
No, I read that and I'm like, wait, what do you mean that you had an inkling that it would come that day? Nobody, fans, industry insiders, nobody expected that this would happen that day or that weekend. This caught everyone off guard. So my question is, look, why? This is the question. Why did Bob Iger get that inkling that it would come that day? And I wish this reporter, Leslie Sykes, would have kind of followed up on that. I think it's a little bit, I don't know, questionable, right?
Oh, it's very, very questionable. I mean, one or two things is happening there. One is that he's hearing rumblings right across, his sources and his confidants and so forth, that in his discussions with other people notable in the industry, that something might happen in which the Walt Disney Company might seek his let's say counsel, right?
Right.
his guidance. All right. Okay, that's one interesting note on the day, but okay. Or that he may have had a hand in setting such a call in motion, right? And me myself personally, I'm kind of leaning towards that one. It's very interesting that he would actually say, yeah, I kind of had some inkling that the call would come that day. Look, and you put it perfectly best, right? Nobody was even assuming that call would come ever. The fact that he had some inkling that it would come, not just come at all, but that day, very, very suspicious.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, even if he were to say, I had an inkling that it would come that weekend, I'd be like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. Why that weekend? But he narrowed it down to that particular day. So that's very interesting. And I wish they would have followed up on that, because I'm very curious as to what transpired to give him that impression that he would get a call that day. Because if you look back on that day last week, I think he got the call on Friday of last week. Right. Nothing newsworthy really happened that day for the Walt Disney Company. I mean, if that was the day of, like, say, the quarterly earnings report, okay, maybe we can chalk it up to, hey, they had a bad quarter. I kind of expected the call. Disney was kind of in the shitter that day. Okay, I get that. That. But nothing really noteworthy happened on that day. Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. The only thing that happened of note that whole weekend was him coming back. So what made him think he was getting that call that day? That's very, very interesting.
Well, also too, a infamous Elton John concert as well. I think that was the other thing that happened that weekend. Yeah. But again, the most interesting thing at that concert was precipitated by this call. So a fascinating thing right here. But the Hollywood Reporter goes on to say, talking about Willow Bay, Bob Iger's wife, her reaction was, quote, "If you are asked, you have to do it," he said, adding that while he was, quote, emotionally distant purposefully from the company after he left, he was, quote, never fully detached given his affection for Disney. Was it his affection for Disney? I'm not quite sure about that. We know, though, he was not detached whatsoever. Like the Wall Street Journal and some other articles that have come out from the trades have suggested that apparently he was talking about the company so much that it made friends of his uncomfortable. His obsession with it. So that's a very kind of interesting thing. But I do agree with you, OG. There was, let's just say, there's been momentum towards this moment here. Some of that's orchestrated. Maybe some of that's purposeful. Maybe some of that's, just happenstance.
Well, and we talked about a lot on this channel, and we get heat for it all the time. But like for literally months and even years now, we've been talking about how the Hollywood trades have sort of what seems to be working with Bob Iger to sort of trash Chapek, kind of like to minimize him and sort of make him look worse than maybe he really is. Not saying that Chapek was an amazing CEO. I'm not saying Chapek was another Walt Disney, nothing like that. He had his issues, but I do think, and I've said this all along, and I stand by it, I do think that a lot of the bald man bad stuff, whether it be with fans or even in the trades, was greatly exaggerated and greatly, look, whenever you have something brought to the forefront constantly, it's going to look worse. And that's partly why, to be fair, that's partly why Disney seems like it's in a worse position than a lot of other companies in the industry. Mm-hmm. They're not necessarily, if you look at the actual numbers, the actual data, they're not necessarily doing worse than a Warner Brothers or a Comcast or a Paramount or anybody else, but the focus is on Disney. And so when every headline you read is, well, Disney did this and Disney did that,
right?
It's a perception that, oh God, Disney's in a lot of hot water, even though every other company is getting the same kind of stuff. Same goes for Chapek. When every headline is, oh my God, Chapek did this, oh my God, Chapek did that, it gives a perception that he's worse than, say, the CEO across the street. But not necessarily, though. It's a perception game. So, and the trades know that.
Well, and I also think, like the heat that Bob Chapek has been getting from the trades lately, a little, like, is there truth to it? Yes, no question. But that much heat, there's an agenda there as well. So we all have to be we have to recognize the media's outsized role in the perception of the company, its leaders, and so forth. But speaking on the, like other companies and corporations, they are suffering. Well, interesting here. That brings us on to our next big point here that was brought up at this town hall. And honestly, the thing that I think surprised many, didn't necessarily surprise us, but surprised many, and one thing that was headline worthy, I would say. But he also noted that the hiring freeze that his predecessor, Bob Chapek, put in place will continue, calling it a wise move given the sector's challenges. Yeah. And as he figures out how to rationalize Disney's cost structure, quote, we need to work quickly, but we also need to be smart about it. I believe Blog Mickey might have a little bit more on this. Still looking into the specifics of the plan, but said the hiring freeze seemed like a necessary step due to the challenges. Yes, and that is exactly correct. Now, this is interesting because according to Fortune, actually, as brought up by our good friend Alia of the channel right here, she makes an interesting point here. Quote, this was from Chapek when he originally announced the hiring freeze back just days after that quarterly earnings call. Quote, we are limiting headcount additions through a targeted hiring freeze, Chapek said in the memo. Quote, hiring for the small subset of the most critical business driving positions will continue, but all other roles are on hold. So, yes, some people are kind of saying that this was, like a full freeze, like, they're just going to stop from every single sector, every single division, hiring at every single level. I don't believe that is true. It is going to be targeted, I think, but it will stretch across all of the company's sectors. That I do believe. But, for like the frontline cast members at Disneyland or Walt Disney World, because there's so much elasticity and that business is so dynamic and with the high turnover and so forth, I don't think they're going to be stopping there. But everywhere else, I mean, I do think there will be some considerations made. And that might differ from his predecessor as Bob Iger looks into this.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. Where they cut, like when he gets down into the nitty gritty, where they cut is more than likely going to be different than where Bob Chapek would have cut. Now, look, I'll be real with you. Bob Chapek would have looked at a division like Reimagine Tomorrow, right? Yeah. And said, hey, you know what? Is that really needed? I don't know. Cut that out. Where Bob Iger is going to look at that and go, no, we really need that. Like these two men have very different perceptions with this whole thing. So Chapek really, look, the whole
apologize for not being the ally that you needed me to be.
what was really because he look, the real Bob Chapek didn't care about that. Let's be honest. He really didn't. Yeah. He only said,
apologize for not being the ally that you needed me to be,
because he was under pressure. Okay. Mm-hmm. But Bob Iger is much more in that. He really believes that, and that's really
Yes.
his ideology. Where he really Bob Iger is much more in the whole inclusive thing, right?
Right. Mhm.
Chapek wasn't. Chapek was a money guy.
Yeah.
So when Chapek looks at the divisions, he's going to look at something like Rematch Tomorrow and go, well, okay, they're expendable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bob Iger's
or,
not
the,
gonna,
or the speculation was their DEI division as well. That was the other one that was kind of like, do we necessarily need this? They command huge salaries. I can kind of understand it, but that's not going to be Iger. So sorry, go ahead, OG.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and that's not going to be Iger. So the cuts were going to happen no matter what, whether it's Chapek or whether it's Bob Iger. But where the cuts are going to take place, that's going to differ between these two men. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
100%. And I believe, finishing up this point here, Iger speaking to employees, this is per Scott Gustin on Twitter, acknowledged it has been a challenging time for everyone involved. He also said that there is, quote, a lot to do and quickly. He also said that the company will remain, quote, resilient and focus on creativity. So, yeah, I could see like Chapek maybe trimming the fat when it comes to those creative roles. I don't necessarily think that Iger will cut there, and if he does, it'll be far more surgical than blunt force, let's say. But lot to do and quickly. I think that's the overarching kind of theme with the kind of this second term of Iger, right?
Yeah,
I think things will happen quickly. Maybe not one thing per day, but one thing per week. Yeah, I could definitely expect that. If this term is limited to 2 years, right? Well, there's 56 weeks in a year. That's 112 weeks in which things can happen. I predict 112 at least major moves to have happened before he is up. So,
absolutely. No, he's gonna make major moves. He's got 2 years to do it.
Yep.
He's got to right the ship. He's got to find a successor.
Yep.
And there's even more pressure, believe it or not, even more pressure now to get the succession right than before. Because now he kind of, hey, look, Bob Iger, he's done a lot of great things for the Walt Disney Company, but one thing that he really dropped the ball on, like really hard, was that succession plan. Whether you like Chapek or not, just kind of throwing it to him in February 2020 was kind of a dick move. Let's be honest. So now he's got to get that right. He's got to get that right. He's got to find someone now, because now you can't just look. Here's the other thing too. You got to find someone that the fans and Hollywood likes. You got to find someone who's kind of personable, because you can't have another Chapek that's going to be disliked by everybody. He's got to find someone that's going to be able to kind of handle the media, handle the optics, handle the PR. Who do you pick? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. But there's a lot of pressure on him, and 2 years. It sounds like a long time, but it really isn't a long time to find somebody to run a massive company like this. And that's why I've been really, really, really bullish on Tom Staggs, because he already has the chops at Disney. He was a CFO, the chief financial officer at Disney for a long time. He ran the parks division very successfully for Disney for a few years. He can kind of hit the ground running. You might have to kind of clue him in a little bit on this whole streaming thing, because that's kind of new to the game since Staggs left. But for the most part, he's very adjusted to Disney culture, and you can, by and large, can kind of hit the ground running. I think you kind of need a person like that. But
I think so.
I'm telling you, I mean, getting him in or somebody else, it's gonna be tough. This is not easy. I do not envy Bob Iger. This is not easy.
Tom Staggs was given the benefit of being at the head of the Parks and Resorts division, right? And being, they don't want us to use the G word, so being set up, right, for the CEO position. Well, but it was like 5-6 years, like I said. Iger doesn't have that necessarily that amount of time to do that again. No. He's got 2 years. So, I mean, I think that's kind of why we're kind of looking at Tom Staggs, because he's already very familiar with the business. Like OG said, he can just hit the ground running, and I think that will play a role in his decision making, whether it be from internal candidates or external candidates. By the way, you mentioned streaming. Iger mentioned streaming himself. He says that Disney must shift its focus towards making its streaming business profitable rather than concentrating on just adding subscribers. That's per CNBC. I think that's also, yeah, that's probably apt. You can't just keep throwing money towards the that is streaming, right? I mean, you have to be looking for at some kind of profitability somewhere, somehow, whatever. Some people said that price increases were coming. I'm actually not sure on that. I think they'll lean into this kind of ad-driven model that Chapek kind of laid out, because I think that's kind of the place that Iger wants to go here. Even he was a little bit uncomfortable with the idea of raising prices so quickly on Disney Plus. I don't think he's going to be inclined to do that even further.
Yeah. What was interesting, and this is kind of like an ongoing, and you'll see this throughout the article, but what was interesting to me was how much Bob Iger didn't necessarily disagree too much with Bob Chapek on a lot of this stuff. Like it was very right. Like a lot of the stuff that Iger is saying in these quotes is very much like, all right, well, I don't know enough. I'll look at it, or we're going to continue that, or right. But I didn't see a lot of like coming out like firmly, like what Chapek did was not the right move and we're completely reversing course. I didn't see a lot of that. I really didn't. So that was interesting.
Right.
That was very, very interesting.
It was. And that's kind of why people are like, oh, there's going to be big fundamental changes at Disney. Not so much. I'm not firmly in that camp. Now, I do think
more surgical for sure.
Be surgical. There will be an emphasis placed on creatives over just profit and losses. That for sure, right? But as far as like the operational changes, I don't anticipate that many big fundamental changes. I do think it'll, like you said, surgical changes to the operation. Sure, no question, and that might amount to some a different take on these things philosophically and. What ends up happening, but it's like I think Iger understands Chapek wasn't all bad.
No,
some of those decisions actually made sense, and I think he'll do his part in fulfilling them, at least in his special Bob Iger way, let's say.
Well, yeah, as a good CEO, as a good leader, I think you kind of have to have that mindset. Like if you go into any job, like if you become a supervisor to a division of your company, or you become a lead or a manager or whatever, if you have the mindset, I'm going to go in there and just change everything. Well, okay, that's not a good leader. That you're just changing to change. Yeah. That's not necessarily good. I think Iger is smart in this, where he's going, okay, I'm going to look at what Chapek did. Some of the things we're going to keep. Some of the things we might tweak, some we might remove, but I'm going to look at it and kind of make that decision. I think that's a good move. That's a measured move.
Yes.
I wouldn't want Iger to come in here and just be like, well, you know what? Everything Chapek did was bad, because that's bald man bad. And I don't like anything Chapek did. So I'm going to just revert. Hey, if Chapek said black, I'm saying white. If Chapek, said hot, I don't want that. So I'm glad Iger is going in there going like, hey, look, you know what? Yeah, some of the stuff we might keep. We might keep it. We might alter it or tweak it. That's the right move to make, I think.
It's a level of pragmatism, It's just, and that's I do appreciate that. I will agree with you, OG. But speaking of being pragmatic, Bob Iger says, don't expect Disney to make any acquisitions anytime soon. And the Hollywood Reporter reflects this. On mergers and acquisitions, Iger dismissed the idea that Apple could buy Disney as, quote, pure speculation, and said that he does not expect the company to make any significant acquisitions during his second term as CEO. Quote, we have a lot of great assets here, while noting that every acquisition also included people who have been critical of Disney's success. Quote, nothing is forever, but I am very, very comfortable with each of the assets that we have. And he suggested that he wants Disney employees to be working together. That's part of the part of the next segment for sure. But I think it's I do agree with that. And look, he might be saying that, oh, we have a great number of assets, so we're fine. But also, he's speaking towards, I think, the Disney's current financial position as well. Of
course.
Like they're, it's not because they wouldn't want to buy. It's just that they necessarily don't have the pocketbook, let's say. Also, too, the Apple thing. I mean, would he necessarily admit to it if, in fact, it was going to happen here? No. However, improbable. I mean, it's very, very unlikely. Hopefully this, puts it to bed once and for all, but everybody,
it won't. Yeah, no, I mean, because the thing is like what you said, like he wouldn't admit to it anyway. Yeah. It's like a politician when they ask, "Are you running for president?" No, and then they run for president. Or even Andrew Garfield. How many times did the late night talk shows ask Andrew Garfield if he was in Spider-Man No Way Home? And every single time he looked straight into that camera and told them, "No, I'm not in. I don't know what you're talking about." And he's fucking in the movie. He's in the movie quite a bit, actually.
Yes.
So yeah, just because Bob Iger says, "Oh no, we're the Apple thing is speculation," doesn't mean it's completely off the table. Doesn't mean that a deal can't come across his desk that he likes. But I agree with Dre. I don't think it's likely. I think that right now the DOJ and the powers that be are really scrutinizing these mega mergers, and there is no bigger mega merger than Apple and Disney, and that thing would be scrutinized to high heaven.
Oh,
and
boy.
Oh God. I mean, it would just introduce a whole host of problems for both Apple and Disney. I just don't think that either one of them want to deal with that. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know if Apple really wants to get into a lot of stuff. Now, here's the thing though. Alia, our friend Alia.
Sure.
She brought up a great point. Hold on. Let me bring up what she said. She DM'd me something that this is, I think this is fantastic. And this is why we love Alia, because she's freaking brilliant. Yeah. But she's a Patreon of Cameron Pasha, right? Mm-hmm. Of what's his channel? Midnight's Edge, I believe.
Well, he makes appearances on other channels like Midnight's Edge, like Valiant Renegade, and so forth. But his outlet is mainly his Patreon account.
Okay, so he, I guess on that channel, mm-hmm. He was talking to a Disney insider, and the Disney insider said, quote, and this is in regards to Apple, okay?
Sure.
It says here, "That's right, Cameron. I wouldn't be surprised if Disney sells its tech assets to Apple." Now, mind you, tech assets, okay? Not the whole company, to tech assets. He says, "I don't think Apple would be interested in real estate or some of that IP." And we've talked about that. Would they want to run a cruise ship? Would they want to run a theme park? Probably not. So yes, that's stuff that Apple wouldn't want to get into. However, ESPN, and then in parentheses, Apple is aggressively pursuing sports deals, including NFL Sunday Ticket, in parentheses, and or Disney streaming service might be attractive. Now that's fascinating. What if? Here's a big what if.
Sure.
What if maybe people have this mindset, all or nothing. What if it's surgical?
Yeah.
What if Disney sells Disney Plus to Apple and license out their content to an Apple? Okay, Apple, you know what? We'll let you run Disney Plus. We'll license out the IP to you. Well, now that's a moneymaker big time for Disney. So now Apple has a streaming service in that Disney Plus, but Disney is licensing out their IP to them, much like the deal you have with Tokyo Disney. Tokyo Disney, Oriental Land Company runs that resort, but Disney license out that IP, right? That's interesting. What if they sell ESPN to Apple or something? So this is the kind of surgical kind of sales to Apple that Disney might do. Now, this is much more likely than an outright, okay, we're taking all of Disney and we're selling to Apple. I can definitely see, especially the streaming service.
Yes.
Taking that and selling it to Apple. I can see that being attractive for both parties big time. What are your thoughts on that?
It's an interesting idea. I mean, it would kind of offload the debt burden that is Disney Plus off the books. I think that's for sure. And doing a kind of licensing deal with them in order to have a place for content to go. Basically setting up what they had with Netflix before they did all this.
That's true.
That is that's a possibility. I mean, look, here's the thing, and this goes into the hiring freeze thing, right? The fact that they're doing this, and the fact that the conversation of Apple keeps coming up and all that kind of stuff, to me it suggests, maybe not so much Apple, but definitely the hiring freeze. It suggests that the company's internals are maybe worse than we're being led to believe. Now, again, I mean, even at quarterly earnings reports and so forth, Chapek's not going to go, the sky is falling, right? And so that's why it's like, well, he was a little bit laissez-faire with this. It's like, well, yeah, he's supposed to make the company look as good as possible to investors so that they don't sell their stocks. But at the same time, I do think, with Bob Iger coming back here, with him saying, I don't know, maybe we have to keep some of these policies and so forth, even he reiterated, even with his memo to the DMED division, that hey, we're going to have to be a little bit more cost effective here. We're going to have to make some cuts and so forth. I mean, it all kind of suggests, and what we've been saying this entire time, OG, they're in survival mode still. Right. And so, moves like offloading Disney Plus, possibly, just so that they don't have to keep churning out so much cash just to keep it afloat and so forth.
Right.
It is kind of an interesting idea, as
it is.
Wall Street has kind of reevaluated the streaming game entirely.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It would turn Disney Plus into a much more of a moneymaker for the Mouse House. It would kind of even, maybe even kind of smooth over that Hulu thing with Comcast. Maybe if you sell these streaming services to an Apple.
Yeah. Maybe you buy a Hulu and then sell the bundle.
Right.
To Apple as a whole. Well, that's an interesting point.
Right. So, I mean, these are the kind of smart kind of moves I think Iger is going to make, because Iger is not a dumb guy, you guys. I mean, Iger, you don't like his IP, you don't like his approach, you don't like his politics, fine. Iger is a very smart guy. There's a reason why David Zaslav fanboys for this guy every single quarter. There is a reason for that. This guy knows what he's doing. And I think that these are options. I think that he might do something like this, where he sells a Disney Plus to Apple, or a Hulu to Apple, or maybe even an ESPN to Apple or something. There's something going on.
It is interesting, OG. He does say, quote, "We have a great set of assets here." So, assets could work for you, but they could also be sold from you. So, well, there's more to that. But again, this stuff will come fast, guys. I assure you. He's got 2 years to make some moves. Don't be surprised if we see some big moves before the next quarter. I mean, that I am almost confident entirely in. So he goes on about the RCID here. I'm going to skip that for now, just because there's some other stuff that I kind of want to get to. The RCID thing is an interesting one for sure, and we will talk about it in a later date. But
sure.
With our limited time that we have available, I wanted to kind of go into this portion right here. Since we are kind of parks, right? Disney CEO Bob Iger will discuss the Disney Park Pass reservation system with Parks Chairman Josh Giamaro. I thought this was really fascinating. So I'll read this right here from Blog Mickey. In the employee town hall this afternoon, Disney CEO Bob Iger was asked about the future of the Disney Park Pass reservation system. Iger noted that he has not used the system. That's interesting. But he has read about it. Some bad and some good. Iger said that he would talk to Disney Parks chairman Josh Giamaro about the park reservation system. Giamaro has previously championed the theme park reservation system and was also one of the early executive voices, noting that the theme park reservation system is, quote, here to stay. OG, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the whole notion that this was solely a Chapek thing is not true. Because, like Blog Mickey says, even Daddy Josh was talking about, he was kind of praising the reservation system. And from what I understand, I think there was even an article from like a year or more ago saying that it was even really spearheaded by Daddy Josh. Like this was like something he really believed in, right?
Yes.
So here's the thing, though, that's interesting about this, though, is that Bob Iger didn't commit either way. He said, hey, I've heard good, I've heard bad. I'll look into it. I'm going to kind of talk to Daddy Josh about it. Well, that was a smart move for Iger, because now if the reservation system stays, it looks like it's on Daddy Josh. It's no longer on Iger. Hey, look, Iger could say, I talked to Josh about it. He runs the park. Josh runs the parks.
Yep.
Josh told me things are fine. I'm going off of what my parks exec is telling me, right? I'm leaving it up to the creatives to let me know, like what, So a smart move on Iger. And this is the thing with Iger. He's a master at the 4D chess. He really is. That's why he's back in the seat. He is. He's a master. This is one of those master moves, because now the pressure is on Daddy Josh. Okay, Daddy Josh, Iger's going to talk to you about it. So what are you going to do, Daddy Josh? You're going to get rid of it? Because if you don't get rid of it, fans are going to hate you now.
Right. And this is like, it is consistent with what we've been saying here, right? That, look, he's Josh is either a figurehead, i.e. useless, or he is complicit, right? And that's kind of the duality that you have to kind of get around if you really love Daddy Josh but hated Bob Chapek, right? Because these things still happened under Josh D'Amaro, and they have been championed by Josh D'Amaro. Look at who gave the announcement for Genie Plus and put it all in these kind of glowing terms and so forth. Look at the people who are reiterating, hey, it's here to stay, this park reservation system. That's Daddy Josh right there. So this is why I never understood, why people love Josh D'Amaro so much. I'm like, what has he done lately? He has made your park experience worse. You are the first ones to complain about the Genie Plus and reservation type systems, right? Like, what are you talking about? You should hate this guy. And to Iger's credit, he's saying, well, I'll talk to Josh about it, and we'll see. We'll see what he says about it, which one can presume now, if it stays, well, it had to be Daddy Josh's doing, right? At PixieDust_B on Twitter says, if it doesn't go away, then we'll know who's to blame, and it's not Chapek anymore.
Well, yeah, you can't blame Ball Man Bad anymore, right? So it's either going to be Iger or Daddy Josh that's keeping this thing afloat. It just is. He's not Chapek. Chapek has zero power.
Right.
I mean, even the Bob Chapek shipbuilder sign over in Castaway Cay was removed. Chapek is out. He's done. He's done. He's got no power. So, it's interesting. It's fascinating. And that's why I certainly wouldn't want to tangle with Bob Iger, because Bob Iger knows how to maneuver these things pretty well. It's pretty clear.
And that's the thing. Who do you blame for things that you don't like? Because Chapek's gone now, like you said, right?
Right.
I think Iger's
who's the bad guy now?
Right. Because D'Amaro has enjoyed all of the terrible moves that have been made in the Parks Experience and Parks Division, let's have Chapek absorb all the castigation, right?
Right.
Now that person's no longer there. That's going to be really interesting to see. Also of note, too, that the last little gem here, he has not used the system. That's kind of an interesting thing, too, because I know the one of the biggest complaints kind of coming out of this sector is Disney's not using the systems that they're implementing and expect guests to use. Right? And Iger seems to kind of acknowledge that a little bit and kind of insinuate that he has utilized systems before himself in order to get a first-hand perspective. That's kind of like what he's saying right there. I mean, it could all just be fluff, right? We can't dismiss that at all. But he has not used the system. That's kind of an interesting thing because, that was kind of Walt's thing. It was like, hey, listen, if you go to the parks, you Imagineers, right? You park in the same lot that everybody else does. You go to the same gates that everybody else does. You wait in the same lines that the guests wait in. You eat the same food that the guests are served and so forth.
Right?
Really take on the parks from kind of a guest's perspective in order to make them better. It's interesting that he would include that.
Well, it is. I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass on that, though, because the reservation system really hasn't been in place like fully like this. Now, when he was CEO. Like it really started during the pandy when he left.
Oh no, I know what I'm saying though is that he's almost intimating that previous systems that were established during his time he would use.
Right.
And of course he hasn't used it because he hasn't been there, right? I get it. But it's just kind of interesting that he would come at it from like a first like a first-hand perspective, like a
fan perspective, right? Yeah. Like I haven't used it yet. I don't know what it's like, and yeah, that is fascinating. I hope he uses it. I hope he kind of checks it out and sees how it is, and kind of gauges it, because I think that's very, very important. You have to kind of see it from that guest perspective,
You do, and I've heard it from a number of people. If they just use the same systems they expected guests to use, we would see them improved, and hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, and even if you're not a Bob Iger,
sure,
and let's say you have a Club 33 membership, you're not using the same system that everyone else is using.
Yeah.
So it's, and Bob Iger has a much better system. Let's be honest. If Bob Iger's going to the parks, he's getting fast tracked into those attractions.
He's got even the white glove treatment.
Yeah, white glove treatment. And 33 isn't maybe the Bob Iger treatment, but it's definitely a step above. Like, well, if you have an Imagine key or something, it's definitely above that. So it's very important that he goes in there and sort of like sees it from all perspectives and sort of like understands that like your average person isn't getting that same experience that you are, Bob Iger. So try to see it from a guest person. Him and his wife and his kids should really try to, just be a normie for a day.
Yeah.
Do the reservation system, get your Genie Plus, see how it works out for you, Iger. That's my best advice to you. And if you like the system, okay, fine. That's great. If it sucks, maybe it's time to change it.
And I would also put that onus on Josh Giamaro, because we know we see him in the parks a lot, but how many of those systems is he himself actually using? Right. He's probably got a similar setup to Bob Chapek or Bob Iger. So use your systems, people. There's a reason why Walt Disney actually said that. And on a final note, what was kind of surprising, I would say, is that Bob Iger commented on Reedy Creek on the Lake Nona move, but didn't actually give a definitive statement one way or another. Just saying that I don't in any way mean to indicate reversing this decision that was made, but it is something that I will look into. That's kind of an interesting thing. This seemed like a slam dunk, like, this could be the splashy move that you could, make right here, right now. The big speculation is that, this thing's not going forward. I'm surprised he wouldn't kind of lay into that in this forum right here.
I am too. I'm actually surprised by this too, because this is something that like it's sort of like the DMED move.
Yeah.
With the reorg, right? Like you can sort of like you can say it's not happening, and you can make the creatives really happy almost immediately. It's been no secret. Imagineers do not want to move to Florida. They've lost a lot of people because a lot of these creatives don't want to move to Florida for whatever reason. They don't want to go. So Iger could have been like sitting kind of pretty if really for Imagineering, and if you would have said like, no, I'm not going to make my team move to Florida. They don't want to move, but they don't want to move. We're going to keep them here in Glendale.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do that, which is interesting.
He talks about it too, in another part of it here. He says, let's see, there's value. Yeah, he wants Disney employees to be working together. I do believe that in the creative process, there's tremendous value in working from the same place. It creates an energy. It is very enabling to creativity. I'm not making any proclamations, but I think that it's extremely important. He also says that the company should be more flexible in how employees manage their personal and private professional lives. Yeah, I mean, that's, he's given the standard answer there. I'm just surprised. I'm surprised that, he wouldn't just say, yeah, they see there's tremendous value, and that's why this Lake Nona move, we're not necessarily going to do it in the way that was championed by my predecessor. It would be a very easy thing to say that, but he didn't even commit to that. So overall, with this town hall, and we'll get into more of the specifics later, of course, in subsequent shows, but overall, not as... It's a little bit of a wishy-washy town hall. Now, I understand. Probably not one to make headlines. But I would have assumed that he would have made a little bit more of an affirmative statement on some of these things. Rather than, we'll see, I think that was surprising.
It was in a weird way. And I even mentioned this to you pregame. In a weird way, though, I almost feel a little bit comforted by the fact that he didn't go in there just like, I'm going to change things just to change things because, Chapek is bad, right?
Mhm.
I like this approach where he's going in there going like, hey, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I haven't looked into it yet. I've only been in there for a week. I need more time to kind of like look at it and sort of make a call. I like that. And that kind of shows. And Iger has been really shown really for the last 15 plus years, he is a long game kind of guy. He really is.
I guess.
Right.
Well, yeah,
I mean, like the purchase of Pixar, that was a long game move. I mean, it was, we're going to buy the studio because, hey, we don't want to buy the gallon of milk. We want to buy the cow so we can have milk forever. Right.
Sure.
Sorry about the visual, but you know what I'm saying?
I got it.
He seems like a long-term kind of guy. So I think that when you go in here, I'm comforted by the fact that he's not going in there just making hasty decisions because he knows Chapek is unpopular and he knows that he'll get the instant applause if he rolls back every Chapek decision. He's obviously not doing that. He's saying, look, I don't know if I want to roll that back or not. I got to look at it first. I like that. I really, really like that because not everything Chapek did, and we've said this many times on this show, not everything Chapek did was bad just because Chapek did it.
Right.
So, and I'm glad Iger is recognizing that and is willing to look at things from a honest standpoint and not just rolling things back just to get the applause. I like that. I do.
I get it. And yes, I would like that as well, but I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit too cynical with Iger now. I think he has made these decisions. He's just holding them off for a more opportune time. But to each their own. If in fact the situation is as relayed, by you, OG, I fully agree. If he is making those decisions, and being a little bit more pragmatic, being a little bit more thoughtful of them, considerate of them, I fully agree that that's the best way to go. But that concludes this video, I think, at least for now. Trust me, we will talk far more about this later, and as more news comes out, I am sure. If you guys want to go ahead and follow me on Twitter, you can go ahead and do so at VashGuy right there for, as Christine Lee Sons McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussion right there. And if you want to go ahead and see me and others that are on here, including the esteemed Orange Grove 55 or the Disney family man George on his show Citrus Corner, well, you got to subscribe here where you can find all of those shows, including mine, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
Perfect. And Disney cast members, see, I'm using 2 fingers. That's that Disney point right there, right?
That's right.
That's 2 fingers. You got to use 2 fingers.
2-finger point. 2-finger point. Absolutely.
Absolutely. But thank you all so much for watching. This was a great conversation. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I'm telling you, like, this Iger story is going to be wild. When Dre says like a story a week, I agree with him. I think this is going to be constant. Even with look at how many stories we've seen consistently, even with David Zaslav and Discovery and Warner. Yeah, it's almost weekly, even with that. Right. And I think this is going to be on that level, maybe even more intense than that. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be absolutely fascinating. There are things that I'm disappointed in a little bit. I wish he would have gone a little further, but there are things that I'm glad he's taking a step back and kind of like evaluating it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It'd be very interesting, but comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.